Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow morning, but the world is slightly off. Your phone doesn't buzz with the usual messages. The light in your room bends a little differently. People look at you with a subtle unfamiliarity, like you're wearing a new face. You check your reflection, and it's still you. Same body, same mind, but something beneath your skin feels foreign, or maybe ancient. And then it hits you. What if you had entered a version of reality where all of your deepest desires were already true? Not just possible, but done. The money was already yours. The love you ache for, already beside you. The peace you crave, already within you. But here's the twist. No one told you. So you keep living the script of lack. You keep doubting, struggling, resisting, unaware that the thing you long for is not in the future. It's just waiting for you to become it. Now pause, because here's the terrifying paradox. You've been taught your whole life to want things, to work harder, to chase, to ask, to visualize. But Neville Goddard whispers something different through the folds of time. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. Wanting, he said, is the greatest deception, because wanting is not being, and whatever you are not being, you are actively pushing away. Let that sink in. Every wish, every dream, every affirmation from a place of lack is a self-fulfilling prophecy of not having. You don't draw things in with desire. You repel them by acknowledging their absence. So what if the only thing standing between you and everything you've ever desired is a single identity shift? Not a ritual, not a vision board, not a 10-step method, just the radical act of embodying a state. The state of already having, already being, already living. But that raises a deeper, more disturbing question. Who are you right now, really? Not the version you perform. Not the version you present to the world, but the subconscious self that is writing your story when you're not paying attention. The one that breathes your fears and beliefs into the fabric of reality without you ever speaking a word. Because manifestation, as Neville revealed, is not a practice. It is a default. It's not something you do. It's something you can't stop doing. Your every mood is a prayer. Your every assumption a blueprint. And if you're not creating consciously, then you're manifesting unconsciously, on autopilot, looping the same patterns, meeting the same people, fighting the same wars, and calling it fate. What if your entire life has been shaped not by what you wished for, but by what you unconsciously believed you deserved? Not your loudest thoughts, but your quietest convictions. Not your affirmations, but your assumptions. Wouldn't that change everything? Wouldn't that mean that you've been living inside a hall of mirrors where the outer world has been reflecting your inner state all along? Wouldn't that mean you were never really manifesting the future, only echoing the self? And if that's true, if that's even slightly true, then there's something you need to confront, something urgent, something dangerous. What happens to a person who never changes the self they identify with, but spends their whole life trying to change the world around them? They suffer, they chase, they decay, they pray for rain but plant no seeds. They stare at the mirror begging it to smile while frowning. But here's the seed I'm going to plant in you right now. You are not here to attract a new reality. You are here to transmute into the version of you that already lives in it. Everything else is illusion. Everything else is delay. So if the life you want is real, and already exists in another dimension of possibility, then who do you need to become right now to step into it? What if you've been asking the wrong question your entire life? Not how do I get it, but who must I be to already have it? Welcome to the edge, because the next step is not about magic, it's about mastery. And before we reveal the true mechanics of manifestation, we need to dismantle the real problem, the hidden force that has been shaping your reality all along beneath your awareness. Let's go there. What if you're not thinking your thoughts? What if your thoughts are thinking you? Let that question simmer, because the deeper you go, the more disturbing it becomes. Most people believe they're conscious. They believe they're making choices. They believe their desires are their own. But beneath the surface of that belief is something older, something inherited, something conditioned, a silent parasite called assumption. Neville Goddard said that every person lives from a state of consciousness, not in it, from it. That means your identity is not a mask you wear, it's a vibration you emit. And the problem, that vibration was formed before you even knew how to speak. You didn't choose your early experiences. You didn't choose the emotional tone of your childhood. You didn't choose the way the adults around you reacted to money, to love, to power, to pain. But those early impressions became assumptions, and those assumptions became your identity. And once identity is formed, it doesn't matter what you want, because the subconscious doesn't manifest your wants, it manifests your identity. Here's where it gets unsettling. You can be the most optimistic person in the world on the surface, but if your subconscious self-image is rooted in scarcity, rejection, or powerlessness, that's the energy you will radiate. That's the version of reality that will loop, and no amount of positive thinking can override a deeply held identity. Neville called it the law of assumption. What you assume to be true becomes true, not because the world bends to your words, but because it mirrors your inner state without fail. Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. This isn't poetry, it's neurology, it's physics, it's spiritual law. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine. Its job is not to find truth. Its job is to confirm your expectations. It filters out anything that doesn't align with your current self-image. This is known in psychology as confirmation bias. It's why two people can live in the same city, walk the same streets, and see two different worlds. One sees opportunity, the other sees dead ends. Not because the world is different, but because their inner state is. Now here's where the trap tightens. When you try to change your life from the outside by effort, by will, by force, you are engaging in friction against your own self-concept. And friction burns out, because the subconscious is a fortress. And unless you change what you assume to be true about yourself, no external change will last. This is why people relapse, why success feels fleeting, why love escapes just when it begins to feel real, why dreams come close and then vanish. You're not being punished, you're being reflected. Every unmet goal is a mirror. Every repeating relationship is a lesson. Every failure is a scream from the subconscious. This is who I still believe I am. And that's the core of the hidden problem. Your identity, your assumed self, is operating like an invisible thermostat. You might try to heat things up, but the second they get too high, too successful, too joyful, too free, your system pulls you back down to what's familiar, to what's safe, to what your nervous system believes is home, even if that home is pain. Neville knew this. He didn't teach wishful thinking. He taught conscious embodiment. He taught that imagination, properly used, is not fantasy, it's programming. That every scene you rehearse with feeling becomes a command to the subconscious. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. But the world doesn't teach you to use your imagination that way, does it? The world teaches you to use imagination for fear, for doubt, for endless what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. We imagine the betrayal before it happens. We imagine the failure before we begin. We imagine the rejection so often, we start to identify with it. And then we're surprised when reality matches. But Neville said, imagination is God. It is the creative force that shapes reality, not one day, but instantly through your inner state. And that brings us to the hardest truth of all. Most people are loyal to their suffering, because suffering is familiar, and identity craves the familiar even if it hurts. So we hold on to our limitations like old friends. We protect our wounds with stories. We defend our fears with logic. And we never stop to ask the most important question of all. Who would I be without this story? Because without it, the ego dies. And when the ego dies, the truth rushes in. The problem isn't that manifestation doesn't work. The problem is it's always working. It's just working according to the story you haven't questioned yet. And that story is not written in your mind. It's written in your body, in your breath, in your tone, in your posture, in your reactions. Because your state of being is your broadcast. So before you can manifest the life you want, you must confront the life you're unconsciously rehearsing every day. And once you see it, truly see it, you can no longer pretend to be a victim of chance. The next move is yours, and what comes next will break everything wide open. You don't notice the spell while you're under it. That's the first consequence. Because once you accept that reality is shaped by your subconscious identity, not your conscious desires, you begin to realize something chilling. Most people never leave the dream. Not the dream of hope, but the dream of illusion. The illusion that life is happening to them. That struggle is random. that fate is cruel, that they're cursed, unlucky, or just not chosen. But in truth, they are chosen. Chosen by their assumptions, chosen by the identity they wear without even knowing they're wearing it. This is the tragedy Neville Goddard saw so clearly. A world asleep, manifesting pain out of habit, manifesting limitation, because it feels safer than change. And here's what no one tells you. Unconscious manifestation doesn't just ruin dreams. It reshapes your biology. Neuroscience confirms it. The beliefs you hold, especially those charged with emotion, reshape your neural pathways. Your brain literally wires itself to expect failure, abandonment, rejection, and the body follows. Stress hormones flood your system. You begin to age faster. Your immune system weakens. Your intuition goes quiet. Your capacity to imagine something better, suffocated, because the body doesn't know the difference between what's happening out there and what's being rehearsed in here. So every time you replay the worst-case scenario, every time you affirm your unworthiness, every time you brace for rejection, you are living it, not metaphorically, physiologically. And this state of internal war becomes the new normal. The body, mind, and spirit forget how to receive. They forget how to allow. They forget how to rest in the state of already having. You begin to expect struggle. You stop trusting silence. You become suspicious of ease. You see joy not as your baseline, but as a temporary glitch in the system. And because you expect that joy will leave, it does. Here's the second consequence. You don't just manifest experiences. You manifest interpretations. Two people can experience the same moment. A job loss, a breakup, a delay, but one will see it as punishment, the other as initiation. Why? Because they've rehearsed different states. One is living from victimhood, the other from divine authorship. And so it's not the world that determines what happens next. It's the lens. Now imagine this at scale, not just personal but collective. Entire societies built on fear. Systems that train people to believe they are small, powerless, replaceable. Religions that say God is out there. Schools that reward memorization over imagination. Families that pass down shame as if it were sacred inheritance. This is no accident. It's the architecture of unconscious creation, mass manifestation. Society that doesn't know it's manifesting will always default to fear, because fear feels productive. Fear feels like preparation. But fear is not preparation. Fear is invitation. It becomes prophecy. And here's the final, most devastating consequence. You stop dreaming. Not because you're lazy, not because you're unmotivated, but because somewhere deep inside you no longer believe you're allowed. You start calling your desires unrealistic. You start laughing at your younger self. You begin to shrink gradually. So gradually you don't even feel the walls closing in. Until one day you're living a version of life you never consciously chose but can't seem to escape. You begin to repeat relationships that hurt, jobs that drain, environments that suffocate. Not because you want to suffer, but because that's what feels familiar. You don't recognize abundance when it knocks. You don't trust love when it shows up. You don't believe peace can last. And this becomes your prison. A prison with no bars, only beliefs. So what does Neville say about this? He says you must dwell in the end, not wish for the end, not visualize the end while secretly bracing for failure. You must live from the place where it is already done. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but you can't dwell in the end while your nervous system is addicted to beginnings that always collapse. And that's the quiet apocalypse. People stuck in loops of almost, people who feel the pull of destiny, but never quite touch it. Because they're waiting for the world to change before they do. But the world doesn't work that way. It never has. The world is not your maker. It is your mirror. And that's the breakthrough most people never have. Because it requires radical self-responsibility. The willingness to face the terrifying truth. You've always had the power. You were never cursed. You were never forgotten. You were never waiting on the universe. The universe was waiting on you. To remember. To shift. To embody. But most don't. Not because they can't, but because the pain has become identity, and the known feels safer than the possible. So they cling to old definitions, old wounds, old roles, and they call it a life. But if you've read this far, you're not most people. You're at the edge, and the veil is thinning. You've begun to see that manifestation is not a tool, it's a law that does not bend to emotion, intention, or desperation, but to embodiment. And that brings us to the doorway. Because if all this is true, if manifestation is real, if identity is destiny, if you are already broadcasting your reality in every moment, then you only have two options: remain in the trance, or rebel. You've been taught to obey your senses, to believe only what you can touch, measure, quantify. But if your five senses were enough, you wouldn't feel this aching dissonance in your soul, because what you sense is only the echo, not the source. And if you want to escape the loop, if you want to end the cycle of unconscious creation, you must do the most radical thing a human being can do. You must deny your senses and trust your state. This is the beginning of the rebellion, not against the world, but against the illusion of how the world works. Neville Goddard didn't teach wishful thinking. He taught sacred defiance, to feel rich before the money comes, to feel loved before the partner arrives, to feel healed before the body mends. That is rebellion, because it violates the one rule modern society worships: I'll believe it when I see it. But Neville reversed the formula. You'll see it when you believe it. And belief isn't weak. It isn't passive. It's not sitting in meditation waiting for signs. Belief is identity made active. It is choosing moment by moment to feel the version of you that already exists in the unseen, to walk like them, speak like them, decide like them, even when the world offers no evidence, especially then, because evidence follows energy, not the other way around. So here's the rebellion in action. Instead of affirming I want, you declare I am. Instead of asking how will it come, you rest in it is done. Instead of reacting to circumstance, you respond from a higher truth. You are the cause, not the effect. This flips the entire narrative of reality. You're no longer a puppet of fate. You become the operating system. But here's the catch. This shift isn't intellectual. You cannot think your way into it. You must feel your way into it, because the subconscious doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in emotion, imagery, repetition. So if you want to program a new identity, you must impress it upon your subconscious like a seal in wax. Neville gave us the method. Enter the state akin to sleep, that quiet, drowsy space before you drift off. That is the sacred portal. The veil is thin, the guard of reason steps aside, and in that moment, you feel the wish fulfilled, not as fantasy, but as fact. You see it, you hear it, you touch it, you let it imprint, and then you fall asleep. This isn't a technique, it's a revolution, because you're no longer reacting to life, you're informing it. This is how rebels live. But here's the most subversive part. You must persist, because reality bends in proportion to your consistency, not your intensity. You don't lift a new identity once. You wear it, you embody it, until the outer world can no longer not reflect it. And at first it won't. At first everything will resist. Your old identity will whisper doubts. Your environment will throw tests. People will treat you like your past self. Circumstances will tempt you to collapse. Because now you know the truth. You are not here to gather proof. You are here to generate frequency. You are no longer the beggar at the gates of reality. You are the architect, and architecture requires precision. So here's your blueprint. Define your desired state. Not what you want, but who you would be if it were already true. Create a short imaginal scene, something simple, a conversation, a moment of gratitude, a flash of joy. Feel it real, embody it, engage all your senses, believe it with your skin. Repeat it nightly, as you drift into sleep. Let it become the final word your subconscious hears. Live from that state, not perfectly, but persistently. This is not performance, this is alignment. And as you do this, something strange begins to happen. The world responds, not because you forced it, but because you matched it. Reality is a mirror, and now it finally recognizes your reflection. History is filled with quiet rebels who lived this truth. Inventors, prophets, healers, mystics. They weren't lucky, they weren't special, they were aligned, they assumed the feeling, and they let the world rearrange. Neville once said, all transformation begins with an intense burning desire to be transformed. Dissatisfaction with the present is the cause of all change in consciousness. So don't curse your frustration. Don't suppress your hunger. It's your signal that something inside you remembers what it came here to be. And that memory is awakening now. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not late. You are becoming. And this rebellion is your return. Your return to authorship, to power, to conscious creation. But even this is not the final truth, because what lies beyond rebellion is revelation. The final insight, the ultimate key, the truth that not only frees you but dissolves the illusion of bondage entirely. And once you see it, nothing will ever look the same again. There is a moment when the storm quiets, when the questions dissolve, when the chase stops, not because you've given up, but because something deeper has awakened. That moment is not loud, it's not dramatic. It arrives like a whisper inside your bones, and the whisper says, you are never separate. That's it. That's the final truth. You were never apart from your desires. You were never apart from the love, from the wealth, from the healing, from the divinity. You were never lacking, only dreaming that you were. Because the ultimate illusion is that you and the thing you seek are two different things. Neville Goddard said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and continue feeling that it is fulfilled until that which you feel objectifies itself. He didn't mean this as a metaphor, he meant it as law. You are not trying to become, you are trying to remember. You are not chasing a new life. You are collapsing the illusion that you are not already living it in some deeper realm of reality. This is what Neville meant when he said imagination is God. Not a poetic idea, a literal one. You are the divine imaginer, the projector, the architect, and the world you see is nothing more than your assumptions clothed in form. The moment you realize this, not in your mind, but in your being, everything changes. You stop asking, you stop waiting. You stop seeking permission from a universe you were born to co-create with. You begin to walk with a strange, silent knowing. People feel it. Opportunities shift. Reality bends. Not because you've mastered manifestation techniques, but because you've returned to your natural state. Oneness. This is the truth behind all truth. You are not manifesting things. You are manifesting states. And those states manifest everything else. Let that sink in. All your pain came from being out of state. All your struggle came from trying to solve problems inside the wrong identity. But once you shift the state, from lack to fulfillment, from fear to presence, from need to being, the outer world must obey. Because the outer world is not out there, it's inside out. You no longer beg reality to change. You become the change. You no longer pray from desperation. You pray as identity. And prayer in Neville's teaching was never about words. Prayer is assumption. To pray is to dwell in the end, to rest in the feeling of already having. And that is where miracles are born. Not because God grants wishes, but because God is within you and your assumptions are commands. So now we ask, what are you commanding with your being? Because you're doing it right now, with every breath, every sigh, every expectation. This is not a future power. This is present tense divinity. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now the game is different. No more begging, no more bargaining, no more someday. You rise each day and select your state. You walk through the world with invisible royalty. You no longer react to delay, because delay no longer exists. You are not waiting for your manifestation. You are waiting to fully inhabit the version of you who already has it. And the more you dwell there, the faster time bends. Because time doesn't create manifestation. And when your state is aligned with the end, time becomes irrelevant. Things just unfold. Doors open, ideas land, people shift, paths clear. Not through effort, through resonance. And here lies the final key, the secret, buried beneath all secrets. You do not need to manifest anything, because you are already living infinite versions of reality right now. Your job is not to create. Your job is to select, and selection happens not with willpower but with vibration. Every moment you feel yourself into the state of the wish fulfilled, you are tuning your consciousness to that timeline, that dimension, that version of self, and reality must follow. It has no choice, it's your mirror. It was always your mirror. So the only thing left to ask is which reflection you're ready to claim. Because now you know you were never meant to wait. You were never meant to struggle. You were never meant to earn it. You were meant to be it. This isn't ego. This is embodiment. You are not being asked to become more. You are being asked to become clear. To clear away the noise, the doubt, the programming, until all that remains is you and the truth. That your word is power. That your feeling is creation. That your state is God.